Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Now, today we will be exploring the mechanics of life and the unique blueprint that shapes each one of us. Now, today's smart guest is Royce Morales, who will take us through her personal insights on how trusting your intuition, authenticity, and following your own blueprint path, and how these tools can be a catalyst for transformation. Yeah, and for those of you who are ready to face life head on, we have a treat for you towards the end of this conversation. So, welcome to Sisterhood Smarts. Royce, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's really nice having you back. We had a lovely conversation the last time. I think we talked about some very, very important topics. The mirror concept, which I think is a powerful, powerful
Yeah.
concept. And for those of you who think that, it's not, Michael Jackson also had a whole song about that, The Man in the Mirror.
The man in the mirror. Yep, I
Yeah,
remember.
so maybe Royce, y'all had a connection somehow, you know what I mean? Anyway, but Royce, I think let's jump in with maybe you can start by sharing with us your personal relationship with intuition and how it has evolved over time. You know what I mean? And how it has played a role in your own transformation, you know? If you could also tie this in with authenticity, that would be good.
Yes, I would have to say that intuition is number one in terms of my personal transformation. I kind of always thought I was sort of psychic. I would have these little experiences where actually one always comes to mind where I was going up an escalator at a shopping mall. And all of a sudden, I just knew that the escalator was going to stop.
Ooh.
And it stopped. And it
Mhm.
freaked me out because it was so accurate and so timely and scary. And I can tell many, many, many long stories about so many intuitive experiences that I've had.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest one for me was I I had this conversation with a neighbor. And we were talking about intuition. We were talking about psychic abilities and channeling and all of that stuff. And I said to her, well, wouldn't it be great if you could learn how to, tap into that and become a channeler or a medium or whatever? And she said, oh, yeah, that would be great. I wonder if there's ever any classes on that. That sounds like really interesting. And we just kind of laughed it off, thinking there's no way. Well, the very next day, she knocks on my door and she has this crumpled purple piece of paper in her hand. And she opens it up and she goes, you aren't going to believe this, but I found this on the street yesterday. And it was a flyer that said, come learn to be a medium. And we both looked at it and said, well, there's no way we can't do that. That's definitely a sign. So we went to the class. It was in Beverly Hills, so it was an acceptable location. We didn't think it was too weird. And we show up for this class, and I was terrified the whole time. But the teacher led us in a meditation, and I had all these things happen. I was absolutely scared out of my mind, and came back the next week. And I ended up being there for 3 years, and I became their star channeler, their star medium. And one night, I mean, that's the first part of the story of the change from getting in touch with my intuition. The second part is even more dramatic. My teacher asked me to substitute for her one night because she was going on vacation. And I said, okay, fine. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't believe that I had any teaching ability. So I
Mhm.
decided I'll just come to the class and I'll just kind of open it up and give people the space to kind of share, because nobody really shared in the class. It was all about information. So we sat there and we shared. And afterwards, one of the students came up to me and she taps me on the shoulder and she says, Royce, you seem to know a lot of stuff. Would you consider teaching me? And I looked at her and I thought she was out of her mind. I thought, I don't know anything. I'm just a seeker like you are. I've been seeking my whole life. Are you crazy? But out of my mouth came, sure, I'd love to. Bring your friends. And it literally, I had no volition, no conscious volition over those words that came out. She, she arrived the next week with 10 of her friends in my living room. And that's what started my teaching journey, to teaching people how to get in touch with their intuition, how to get in touch with who they are authentically. And it became something that I've been doing for over 4 decades. So talk about having intuition lead the way. I can't ever deny that something much wiser than me was telling me what to do. And it's been that way ever since, you know?
Mm. And I think this fits well with one of the key areas that I thought we could touch on, and this is the mechanics of life. You
Mm.
know, because and I'd like you to explain your, how you see this and what you see the concept of life mechanics, how it plays out in our day to day. But I also think that that we each have our own unique blueprint.
Yes.
Um, and that's why it's important, to get in touch with, like, you said, your intuition, have your, understand really who you are, because this blueprint, it's literally called a blueprint because it's unique to you. So can you explain to us, from your perspective, of course, the concept of life mechanics, and how understanding our unique blueprint can lead to, for lack of better words, better decision making, or should I say clarity, because we can both want to buy a dress and walk into the same store and sit with the same seamstress and pick the same fabric, but the dress made by the right seamstress will have nothing to do with each other's dress. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
she'll look at your body shape, she'll look at the occasion you're wearing the dress, your lifestyle, what you want to do with this dress. And you know what I mean? It will be perfectly made to fit you. And so, if you could just walk us through how you see this playing out, the mechanics of life,
Yeah.
and yeah, and our individual blueprint, in decision making.
Yeah. Well, from what I've experienced doing the inner work that I do, is
Mm.
that everybody arrives here with a chosen purpose. On a spiritual level, we come down, choose our body, choose our parents, choose our geographical location, choose our situation, choose the challenges that we're here to overcome, the things we're here to clean up. And that is our blueprint. And with that blueprint, we're able to say, well, maybe I don't want to be that teacher and I'm not going to do that. And so when we say that to the universe, going against our chosen purpose, all kinds of things happen that kind of continue to point us in that direction. We have all kinds of strange occurrences. We have more people drop in our lap saying, would you teach me? But until we follow that specific, you call it a blueprint, I call it our chosen divine purpose in being here, until we do that, everything goes awry. We're angry at ourselves. We get angry at others. We get angry at life. We feel victimized. We feel stuck. We feel lost. We feel confused. We feel hopeless, until we say, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to do that teacher thing this lifetime. Okay. I've had, again, so many experiences of that. One of them is writing my first book. I was told in no uncertain terms, intuitively, that I was supposed to write a book about a particular experience that I had with a person that was my soulmate. And I kept saying, no, 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 I'm not a writer. I can't do it. No, this is ridiculous. Who would read this? It's too woo-woo. And finally, I'm resisting this tooth and nail. And I was all of a sudden experiencing my right hand, actually both hands, started hurting so badly that I couldn't even type on my computer. And so in my little head, I'm going, well, see, now I really can't write the book because I'm in too much pain. Well, my spirit, my
Interesting.
higher self spirit said to me, oh, yeah? Well,
Mm.
guess what, Royce? Sit down and start writing. No, 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 my fingers hurt too much. So again, I got another message, just sit down at your computer. So I said, all right, I'll listen. So I sat down at my computer, I started writing the book, the pain went away. So it's that kind of
Mhm.
thing that until we listen, there's all kinds of things that happen like that. And until we finally say, okay, I accept this blueprint and this purpose, nothing works in our life. Even to the point where we kind of check out in a lot of ways. We get hopeless or we get sick or we die, you know, just because we didn't listen to those nudges or pushes or kicks in the butt. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, and I think it explains a lot of what people call an anomaly, or bad luck,
Yes.
certain aspects, and that example of the pain, your hands, and as seasoned women, we know that sometimes when you have like something very, very important to do or an event or something that you really need to go to, you might fall sick, you know
Yeah.
something happens. There are moments when you need to pay attention, use your intuition to read into what's happening. Either you need to push through it, and then usually you're like, oh, that's what was on the other side of
Mhm.
me pushing through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Or it could be that you're not supposed to go. You know,
Exactly, it could
it could
be.
be
Yeah,
there. You have to
yeah,
kind of
like missing the plane and you're like, relax.
yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
you've got to listen to which part of you is giving that
Hmm.
input. Is it my fear or is it my knowingness? Is it my higher
Hmm.
self that's saying, if you go to that party, you're gonna get drunk and do something
Hmm.
stupid, or or it's gonna get busted, or something like that. That it knows it's much wiser than we are. You know. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
important to see which side it's coming from.
Yeah. And when it comes to personal growth, why do you believe that intuition is often underestimated or overlooked now in favor of, how do I call this, traditional methods? Now,
Logic.
what I mean is people will say, I need the proof, I need the evidence, where's the data?
Yes, exactly.
And,
Well, that's
we know that there
that's
is no data for your intuition. It's your own
right.
blueprint.
Yes.
You just
That's how
have a knowing.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Show me the data. Anyway, you
yeah.
get where I'm going with this. So why do
Mhm.
you think it is overlooked or underestimated?
Well,
You know.
a lot of it is just what you said. In our society, everything is about data. If you can't prove it, if you can't give scientific evidence or logic or, the last time I did this, this happened. So if you don't have enough of that going on, there's hesitancy to trust the intuition because the intuition is sometimes completely out of left field, completely illogical. In fact, I would have to say 9 times out of 10, intuition is not based on logic. So, part of us, when we get those intuitive nudges, we think, oh God, people are going to think I'm crazy if I do this. You know, I mean, I've done a lot of things that people have said, God, Royce, I really thought you were crazy doing that, but now I understand why you did it. Um, so it all eventually makes sense. But a lot of it is, fear of being looked at as crazy or weird, or, you know, um, taking a risk that you shouldn't take. What if you lose your money, or what if you end up on the street or whatever, just by listening to your intuition? And sometimes that does happen because that's where it needs to take you. Sometimes going through tremendous hardship from listening to your intuition doesn't mean the intuition was wrong. It just means
Mhm.
that was your lesson. That's what you're here to go through. That's what you're here to clean up. That's what you're here to remember about yourself. There's so many times that I thought, oh God, my intuition really screwed up this time. And then I get the lesson from it. And I realize,
Yeah, and I think you've said something very important there, because how does one distinguish between intuitive guidance and external pressures,
yes.
which I may call noise,
Hmm.
in decision making? Because you can call it intuition, but what you're actually doing is a trending thing. It's just something that is trending, or it's based on some buzzwords. you
Right.
know so how do we distinguish between what is true intuition and what is
There is,
external pressures, for lack
yeah,
of better words.
I find that there's a very simple way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it becomes simpler when you learn to be mindful. And that
Mm-hmm.
is very first knowingness that you get is your intuition. And notice I didn't say thought. It's a
Mm-hmm.
knowing. It's like, I know I need to turn left here, and I don't know why. And I listen to that and I
Mm-hmm.
turn left, and I find out later that I avoided an accident. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a thought
Mm-hmm.
that said turn left. It was, I'm supposed to turn left. And it's quiet and it's
Mm-hmm.
calm and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
like that. But usually we miss those knowingness sensations because we're so busy with our thoughts and our fears and our noise, as you call it, that we miss those. And I find that probably 100% of the time, if I don't listen to that knowingness, something gets screwy in my life.
Mm-hmm.
If I listen to my fear that says, oh my God, you better turn left, and I turn left, there's no reason for it. I look back and go, why did I do that? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very quiet, very subtle. What I always tell my students is intuition is knowing that you know and not knowing why. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do that, and I don't know why.
Mm. Mm. For those who were raised, in the church or Christian, you can call it walking by faith and not by sight.
Yeah.
you know, because it is true. It's a very tricky thing, intuition. And what advice would you give somebody who is just beginning to tap into their intuition or their intuitive abilities, and they are feeling overwhelmed or unsure about what it is? Because it takes time to know what it is, to see the patterns, to get your own unique language. You know what I mean, Royce?
Yes.
Each of us have our own unique way of knowing this is the intuition, this is what's going on right here. You know what I mean? And I think it takes time to build that trust, to know what this is and what it means. You know what I mean? And to translate it
Yeah.
into situations,
I
you
think
know?
I compare it to exercising a muscle.
Mm,
It hurts at first. It really hurts. But eventually, when it gets stronger, it no longer hurts. And the same thing with intuition. The
mm,
first 20 times I listened to my intuition, it was terrifying to me. And, I didn't know what the hell I was doing or why I was doing it. But I look back and I go, oh, that was why. Okay, that worked. Okay. And it got easier and easier and easier. And actually, it got harder to not listen to it. So that
mm.
becomes part of it too. It's like, oh, I didn't listen. Okay. Ooh, I should have turned left and looked what happened. So it is hard at first, but it gets easier, and you just have to keep trusting the bigger picture of it too. I think that's what makes it hard. People don't see that this thing I did over here in 10 years will make sense.
Mhm.
Or this direction that I took my life, even though I'm now living in poverty and my husband left me and, my dog ran away. 10 years from now, it will all make sense. I mean, there's so many things that happen in my life that I'm still looking back on and going, oh my God, no wonder I had to go through that. So eventually it does make sense.
Yeah, but you know what, Royce? I kind of understand why people have this fear in trusting their own intuition. I think because we've been raised in a world where you're supposed to listen to the guru. You're
Yeah.
supposed to listen to the pastor, the bishop, the prophet, the prophetess, the coach, the professor, the
Mm.
experts, the think tanks, those with the alphabets before their names,
Yeah.
and so you when you're constantly being programmed that these are the ones who have a say in your life, you tend to always be seeking external advice.
Yes.
What should I do? What should I do? You go to this guru, you go to this expert, you go to this teacher, you go to the professor, you go to the church, the bishop. Some people can't even pray for themselves. I'm not into that. I'm not a Christian like that, but they'll be like, I have a situation. I need somebody to pray for me. This is really serious. You know what I mean? And so we're talking about intuition, because, like you said, it takes practice, it takes years, and then over time you build trust and then you just get it.
Yeah.
But in a world where you have to first be brave enough, courageous enough, to actually say that this is my blueprint. So I understand me better than anybody else, any guru out there, and I need to figure out how this thing works when it comes to matters concerning me. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, and so, you know, can you share, like, early days, beginning days, back way back when you were saying, how does this intuition work? A life altering change or transformation or a breakthrough that you experienced in the early days that made you a believer. For lack of better words, you are like, okay, now I get it. It is me, myself, and I that has to figure this out.
Yeah. I think I'm hesitant to answer that because I arrived here with a sense of rebelliousness that, my mother would say certain things and I automatically rebelled. So that wasn't something I had to learn. That was genetic. But a lot of people don't have that.
I'm laughing because I kind of understand it. I think there's a certain blueprint that makes it easier. Yeah, the rebel gene, it's something. It's a real thing.
Yeah, it is. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people have to struggle and become courageous to go, no, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a ballet dancer or whatever it is that.
Your parents are like, are you kidding me? You have totally lost it. Go on.
Yeah, it's hard for people. It really is. And especially if they have that, that really deep need for approval and that fear of, what if I take this risk and it's wrong, but I think that goes back to the other topic that we were going to talk about today, which is authenticity. I mean, it's all really interconnected, but so many of us are walking around from this inauthentic place. I refer to it as being in an act because we're so afraid that people aren't going to approve of us. They're not going to love me if I tell them I don't want to be a doctor. They're not going to love me if I say I'm divorcing that guy or whatever it is that our soul is telling us we need to do because, if I do that, that means I'm powerful and that's really scary. And, there's tremendous fear of power that goes on underneath us that we're not in touch with at all. There's a part of us that says, if I listen to my intuition or if I become authentic, that means I'm empowered. And what does that mean? Well, that means I deserve whatever in life. Maybe I deserve success or true acknowledgement, true recognition, whatever it means on kind of a primitive level. We're afraid of that. And there's a lot of reasons why, and I get into all of that in what I teach, but that's the core. People always say, well, I'm afraid of losing love. But the real truth is we're afraid of having love because that would mean that we're deserving and powerful. And we can't allow that. We can't accept that for ourselves. It's very sad, but that's what everything boils down to. And that's why we walk around and we're not being authentic and we're not listening to our intuition. We just don't deserve to.
Mm-hmm. And I also wonder sometimes, what is authenticity? What is this authentic thing that everybody talks about? Because, we're all socialized as kids, so you find certain cultures will say this is authentically us. You know what I mean? And I'm always like, what is that? People, groups, whether it's cultural, religious, whatever group you associate or identify with, it's still not a monolith. It really isn't, because when it boils down to your unique blueprint, your needs are yours. You have individual needs and desires and dreams and whatever, you know what I mean? And so I think also what people call authentic is a mishmash of social engineering, programming, and what you are expected to be, depending on, your sex, your gender, your race, your religious belief. I'm a Muslim, so I'm authentically this. I'm a Christian, I'm authentically this. I'm a Buddhist, I must meditate, I'm authentic. You know what I mean? But what if
Yeah.
you're a Buddhist and you don't care to meditate? And I'm not saying these things literally, people. I'm overgeneralizing, but I think we mix authenticity with beliefs of what it is we are expected to be authentically within a certain box still.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Oh, yeah.
so I know you can talk about this because, being authentic, I think, means peeling the layers of the onions and knowing really who you are. And then within whichever group you are, if you want to be in a group or within your family space, your friend space, you are now really authentic,
Yeah.
outside of whatever, the constructs are, for lack of better words.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
I think that's real important what you just said, because when I teach people about all of our acts, our inauthenticity, what I explain is that we might think we're being authentic, but what we really are is somebody that's learned ways to cover up things and to be, as you said, what people expect of us, or cover up our fears really well, cover up our needs, cover our lack of deservingness, our you name it. We've learned ways to cover it all up. All of us as humanity have learned this. And I used to think, well, it's because of our parents and they told us we had to be this and we couldn't be an artist and we had to be a doctor. It's not our parents' fault, because when you look at it in terms of our spiritual reason for being here, our blueprint, what we brought with us to learn and do and accomplish, some of the ways that we get there is by peeling away and getting deeper within to find out what's really going on. So I used to think, absolutely, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be a successful artist. And when all those things started happening with people arriving for me to teach them, I said, wait a minute, that's not my purpose. But guess what? It was. And I had to peel away all the fears and the beliefs and the programming that I had that said, oh, you can't teach, for me to finally become a teacher. And the same thing with my writing. I had to peel away all of that mishmash getting in the way so that I could become a successful writer. So again, all of us have this. And usually there's layers. Like the first layer might be, oh, I have to be cute. So that's my inauthenticity. And then when I get in touch with, well, what is that really about? Oh, because I need attention. Well, what's that about? Well, because I don't believe I deserve attention for who I really am. Well, what is that about? And you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until you discover the core, which is somewhere I decided that I don't deserve attention. I don't deserve to be who I am. I don't deserve my power. I don't deserve to do my purpose here. It always goes down to some kind of an original belief that we formulated about ourselves that has nothing to do with parents or society or friends or the media. It's something we decided that we're now acting out in some way in our world.
I really like that explanation because it kind of underlines the mechanics of everyday life and interactions with, person, place, or thing, because you've talked about the clothes, the fashion, or person, place, or thing. I'll just generalize it that way. But also it underlines how things can get overwhelming by the complexity of it all. And I think sometimes people might just feel that it might be just easier to stay authentic within this authenticity of authenticity. I'll just look cute, okay? I'll just look cute.
Get a new hairstyle,
Now I'll get the hair done, and then maybe I will get the surgery, and then I'll look cute, okay?
Yeah.
Let's just not complicate life, okay?
Yeah. Well, not
Right.
many people want to do the delving. I'm finding that people, like you said, everybody's talking about the word authentic and intuition, but not many are willing to take the risk and to do it and to get the shovel out and do some digging. It's much easier to just go get a new hairstyle and a facelift, you know?
But we know that that doesn't work. And we have a laundry list of people who've done it all and ended up, you know, not in not such a good place.
Yeah.
And we're also seeing the increase of mental health,
Yeah.
depression, all these things. And you can't lie to yourself, people. Like your body knows you. It actually has the blueprint.
Yes, it does. It does.
So
Yeah.
it knows when you're faking the funk.
Yeah. And it gets sick to show us, like my hands or whatever. We suddenly get migraines. Why am I getting migraines? Well, because you're not being authentic. You're not doing what you're supposed to do here, you know? Yeah.
You know how I go like, yikes. I'm saying
Yikes.
that because I know a couple of our listeners, they talk about migraines a lot, you know, and there's been an increase in migraines,
Yes, it's true.
really bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the other increased diseases. I mean, I look at that and I go, wow, this whole world needs to wake up. Come on, guys.
And you have to do the work. It's for yourself. This is the
Yeah.
one thing. Like you wake up to go to work for someone else. You might do something for your children, your family, but if you do it for yourself, and then you can do better for others. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
it's
that's
just how I see it. And
true.
I mean, like you said, the words are thrown around, just like narcissism. Everybody's a narcissist now. And
Yes.
nowadays, Royce, when I see such a word, when words become buzzwords, then I think of the mirror. I'm like,
Yes. There you go.
you need
I
to be
was
careful
just,
what words you're putting out there because I'm just seeing the mirror now at this point.
yeah.
I just see a whole lot of mirrors.
Good. Good. You
You know what I
remember
mean?
you
Yeah.
remember our talk from last time. That's great. Yeah. And
Yes.
I tell people that all the time. They get upset with the things going on politically, and I very quietly and lovingly say, well, I wonder what it's mirroring to us about ourselves. We sometimes we need those magnification mirrors to really wake us up and slap us across the face a few times and go, okay, what is the narcissism you need to see about yourself? So yeah.
Like for real, I've also come to the realization that the politicians, when you talk about politics, they are a mirror. They're a reflection of the society.
You're,
Yeah.
yes. And
Um,
whatever it takes, I always say sometimes it takes shakeups to wake us up. And
yeah.
that's what's going on now, I think, in the world. We're having huge shakeups so that we can wake up and
Yeah.
finally get authentic for real.
Yeah, because Royce, this is an observation. When I look at, and whichever country you pick, everyone is not happy with their politicians. Even here in Europe, we have our issues. Okay, it's not all roses and candy and ice cream, but from my observation, from my standpoint, I've come to see politicians as people who use the power of suggestion. So what I see them using is suggestion, but the doing and the actions are us.
Mhm.
They just use the power of suggestion and then you go and act it out.
Hmm.
So if you choose to act differently, then I think that's it. It's game over
Yeah, interesting.
because they don't actually do the dirty work. It's people who do it.
It's
So
true. Yeah.
this is why, when you said people get angry with you or upset with you, of course they're upset and angry with you because, I learned this from a Caribbean lady. She said, a hit dog will holler, a hit dog will holler,
Hmm.
which means if it hits you, then you holler, you know, because you can say the exact same sentence to somebody else and they'll give you a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hit dog only hollers because he doesn't want to see that he's being shown a mirror of something.
Yeah, but they've been hit somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a trigger. It has hit a nerve, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, so it's very interesting, and then this comes down to what we're talking about, authenticity,
Yeah.
you know, and actually getting the shovel and digging deeper and removing, the stuff that doesn't belong there and
Yeah.
finding the real stuff, the gems. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
the thing about digging, I always have to use this terrible analogy, but once you start digging, I mean, if you can imagine that you are surrounded with this pile of garbage, shall we say,
Hmm.
smelly garbage, and you take that first shovelful, what you're doing is you're exposing the next layer. So you keep digging and exposing the next layer and digging and exposing the next layer. So it's not fun necessarily to do that kind of digging, but it eventually it's all dug up and you're free. So it's worth it. It really is.
Mm, mm. And now we have the rise of spirituality, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
see, no matter where you look, no matter where you're located, there's this huge spiritual movement.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to, when I speak about this, I'm very general because I tend to be a very practical person. In a sense, in the sense that I am aware that I am in a physical body with physical needs, and the reality requires you to do real stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't believe in just meditating and solving problems. Okay. Okay, and just saying, oh, I think you need to actually, that's my, and I say it because I know there are very powerful spiritual practitioners out there who can meditate and solve problems. That's fine, but I am more of the practical person. Okay, but I'd like you to touch on a terminology that I have recently, well, not recently, I've learned it for a while now, right? And it is called spiritual bypassing.
Oh, my favorite topic.
When I learned this terminology, I think I learned it a couple months back, and I said, this is really what I'm seeing in the world, because
Yes.
everything is there's real stuff happening. Like you want clean food, you have to grow the damn food. you know you want clean water, you have to get the purifier, right? The
Yeah.
filters. Right? Okay.
Oh, you're just so practical.
I know I'm not a believer, Royce. I'm not a
Ah,
believer.
yeah.
Although I do move by faith, and not by sight, but some things I think, they're physical things. But let's talk about spiritual bypassing, because I think that many will shy away from this topic, because it makes people uncomfortable, or people might feel that you're questioning their belief system or their spirituality or whatever it is, But I think it's worth talking about,
I agree.
because Royce, this is again an observation. Ever since the spiritual movement started to blow up, have you noticed that there's more chaos also?
I'm sorry, there's more what?
There's more chaos.
Kales.
Chaos, like chaos. It's more chaotic.
Oh, chaos. I thought you were talking about the lettuce, kale.
No, 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 chaos. It's more
Chaos.
chaotic. Yeah,
Yes.
chaotic. Yeah. Have
Yes.
you noticed this? And when I started to observe it a little bit more in depth, I thought, when you're waving your wand without having full knowledge of what you're doing, then we are constantly creating. You know that, right? We agree on this. By word, by action, by thought. We're constantly in the mode of creation. Now, if you jump and you're doing things without full comprehension, it's like waving your wand and creating things without fully knowing the outcomes. So I just have this observation, and I could be wrong, but it's just something I observe, because I'm just like, there's more complaining and less doing in the physical, You know what I mean? And more
Yes.
complaining and less doing in the physical. Everyone is living in space, in air, in the spirit.
Interesting.
And pointing the finger at the politicians need to do it.
Mm.
The teachers need to do it. Somebody else needs to do it. And waving pendulums and doing all these spiritual things chaotically and then wondering why things are going haywire. Because you're creating, Royce, I'm creating, Jack is creating, Wong Lee is creating, Meredith is creating, you know,
Yeah.
Shah is creating. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
and it's all just, it's not, you know, this
I
is an observation, but I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Just walk us through spiritual bypassing and and where we are going with this if we don't get it together.
I love that. I think that's brilliant what you just said. Putting the pieces together like that is just really interesting. I hadn't taken it that far in my thinking, but it makes perfect sense. But basically, spiritual bypassing, oh, really, don't get me started. But people that jump into some sort of spiritual discipline, whether it be Eastern philosophy or meditation or channeling, whatever it is, they're always taught in every single one of these disciplines that, oh, we need to be above our emotions. We need to, float in the ether somewhere and just be joyful. I mean, how many spiritual cliches can you hang on your wall? Look at the bright side. Just let go. All of that stuff, and what people have been instructed to, and what they're learning to do, is to bypass their emotions and their humanness. And what happens when you bypass your emotions? They get stuck. There they are in your stomach or in your head or in your throat or in your heart. And they sit there and they fester and they turn into disease and they turn into acting out. They turn into violence. Whatever it is they turn into, they have to come out somewhere. Emotions, I always compare them to circles. So if somebody says something and I get angry, if I let myself feel that anger all the way through, it's done. But if I don't, it goes like this, over and over and over and over and over until I finally say, oh, okay, here's what it's about. And I feel it and it's done. So we're walking around with a lot of people with those incomplete emotional experiences. And of course, it's going to be wreaking havoc in some way, or chaos, as you say. Yeah. And those disciplines eventually, I did all of them, in the beginnings of my spiritual seeking. I did all of that stuff and I was miserable because I would sit in a room with people meditating and it would feel wonderful and heavenly and the angels would be singing and I would leave that room and I'd be flipping people off on the freeway and yelling at my husband when I got home. Wait a minute. Wait, I'm supposed to be in bliss. How come it's not sticking? So yeah, it doesn't work until you get to the core and resolve those issues, and then it becomes who you are. It becomes authentic as opposed to pushing things down. So that's my long-winded explanation.
No, it was not long-winded at all because, again, what people call long-winded, you have to let spirit talk.
Yeah. Yes.
We also, this linear way of thinking, get to the dumb point. There is no get to the point. There is a message in every word, in every tone, in every frequency, in every story. So I don't know what long-winded means anyway.
Thank you.
No, I don't know what that means. I just think it's spirit talking.
Yeah.
And, as a seasoned woman, I've come to learn, people say, oh, but what's the topic? That message is predestined for a specific person.
Yes.
Not you who's complaining, but somebody else is getting it and taking notes, So there's no long-winded message or wrong answer or things like that. Yeah. But as you were talking about, the energy has to go somewhere. I think it boils down to physics, like energy is not destroyed.
Yes.
So what you release, where does that go?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going back to
that's also an interesting piece that you added. That's a piece we add to the puzzle, the picture that we're putting together. Because when people say, I release, you're releasing all that stuff. Where you think it's going? Like, fix yourself so that
Yeah,
you stop releasing
yeah, yeah.
chaos.
Well, until it's neutralized, until that energy completes itself and comes full circle and is understood and sourced back to the real origin of why you're angry, then that energy is just released in terms of neutral. But until it's resolved, so to speak, it's going out there and affecting the world. Like you said, there's chaos. So why is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even, when people go into nature to release, I think even nature, you have to think about it. It's not fair. Even nature has to take all your mess and transmute it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Like, it's
trees
really,
do a very good job.
what's that?
Trees do a very good job of that, but you're right, it's not fair to them.
No, because you just keep offloading. It's like you use them now as a dumping zone.
Yeah,
It's not fair.
yeah,
They're also sentient beings, and
yeah.
yeah, they can give you a hookup once or twice, but after that, it's abuse, right?
It's energy, whatever, dumping. Yeah, there's a word for that. I'll have to come up with that word. Yeah, energy
Yeah.
pollution. There we go. Energy pollution.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think this is very interesting what we're talking about here. I think this is going somewhere interesting because i- we are also affecting nature.
Mhm.
Maybe that's for a whole other conversation, but it just came to me that you're just dumping pollution. So
Yeah.
also nature is also getting tired and running amok. Like, and then
Yeah.
we're, oh, the weather, everything is going to, you are part of this ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, really.
Yeah, but that's for a whole other maybe conversation. Yeah, but back to spiritual bypassing. How can people go about balancing their spiritual practices and facing the hard life of truth? You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
and what tools and practices have you found helpful? In helping people find that balance.
Well, I think it goes down to, yes, it feels good to meditate, but noticing what else is going on as you're meditating and using the meditation as a way to process through those emotions rather than suppressing them. The work that I do with people combines those two disciplines. So when I'm working with somebody, they're in a meditative state and they're focusing in on whatever their button was or however they were triggered the day before or last week or whatever, and they get in touch with that and they feel it. And when they feel it and get down to what's really going on, what is that button really about? Why were you triggered? What is that showing you a mirror of about yourself? It just goes poof and disappears, and they feel lighter, they feel happy, they feel joyous, they feel peaceful, rather
Mm.
than, oh, I'm just going to sit here and meditate and hope it goes away. So yeah, it really is about balancing the two things that are going on, getting in touch with your higher consciousness, your spirit, as well as, what is this other stuff that's getting in the way of that, and not discounting it and pushing it aside, but feeling it, processing it, discovering the roots of it and letting it go automatically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How does that connect with authenticity, living your authentic life?
Well, every time you do that, what you're left with is more of who you really are. So I'm
Hmm.
no longer triggered by that politician that's doing those horrible things, because I'm now seeing I'm seeing the mirror of how I'm doing similar things, or maybe I've done similar things in some past life or whatever, and I'm resolving that and letting it go, and then I can become more authentic. And what I'm also left with is more compassion for that politician who's choosing to do that, to wake us up. Thank you very much. So yeah, it really it all comes into play and it all goes full circle, and you're just left with, wow, this is who I really am now, and I can really express my purpose, and I can really come from love and compassion, as opposed to trying to because some spiritual guru told me that I should, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that answer because I think externalizing and outsourcing solutions is not the solution, if for lack of better words. You know what I mean? Because even the guru might be right 101%, but that is based on their blueprint
Yeah.
and their knowledge based on their journey and them doing the work got them to where they are with the knowledge and awareness they have.
Yeah.
Now
Absolutely.
they are understanding and mastering themselves and their blueprint. And you are also a guru if you're listening, but you haven't gotten there because you're not taking time to master your blueprint. You're adapting other blueprints. And that's why you're like, you're a, what do you call it? Um, an addictive, you mentioned addiction, addicted. You're an addicted seeker of knowledge because
Mhm.
nothing is authentic to you because it's outside, it's outsourced, it's external. It's
Yes.
not you. It is Royce's blueprint that can give you a piece to help you unlock your knowledge, but then you have to understand yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I understand. Yeah, that was approval addiction is what you mentioned. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the approval addiction aspect of things as well. You're looking for approval, and you're addicted to the approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a very important one that you mentioned earlier in the conversation. And so, as we slowly head out, I have just one more question that I think we can talk about. And this is what do you recommend? You know, we all have a personal journey and we all have what I call the mechanics of life that we each have, our own unique mechanics of life. Basically, that simply means how you do you. Okay, I'm just keeping it simple. So in your standpoint, based on the work you do and many years of teaching, what is one piece of advice that you can give somebody who has decided to go on a personal journey, um, how do I put it, on a personal journey to finding their own blueprint, because it's something you have to find. It's not readily available to you because I mean we live in this earth with a lot of stuff, that has made us not take the time to know who we are. So, what piece of advice would you give somebody who is struggling with their own personal um, transformation or journey? And how do you recommend that they walk this journey confidently, trusting themselves?
Well, without giving too much of a commercial for myself, I
Yeah, you
would
can
say,
give the commercial as well because
okay,
that's part of your blueprint.
okay. Yeah, well, reach out to me because the work that we do goes deep. It's not a walk in the park. I always tell people I give them two tools when they sign up with me, a shovel and a mirror, because
Mhm.
it goes deep and it's all about looking at yourself. And if people are not willing to do the work, then just start being mindful. Notice when your buttons are pushed and when you're triggered. Notice when somebody is reflecting something to you about yourself that you don't want to see, because that's going to wake you up. I can't even begin to tell you how many times there have been mirrors in my life that I thank God for them, because they showed me something about myself that I was unwilling to see in any other way. So those are the alarms, those are the shake-ups and the wake-ups to get us to do what our purpose is. And yeah, it eventually is going to lead you to what your blueprint is and why you are here. And remember that that blueprint is something you chose as a spirit, and it's trying desperately to show up. It's trying to wake you up and show you what you're supposed to do here. And sometimes it may not look how you think it should look, and sometimes it's going to take you in very strange routes, but eventually it's all going to make sense when you look back on your life. It's like, oh, no wonder I had to turn left there, because your spirit is the part of you that's kind of, I always get this image of the spirit kind of on the top of the mountain looking down, and we're just kind of wandering on this curved path, and then there's a boulder, and we're like, what do I do? There's that boulder. Do I jump over it? No, I can't. Well, I can't go that way because I'll fall off the cliff. And the spirit is the part of you that knows why that boulder is there. It's like, oh, if that boulder wasn't there, you'd be eaten by a tiger, So it sees the bigger picture of everything. So you kind of have to really play with that enough times to really trust that my higher self knows exactly what it's doing. So trust that route, trust the awakening process that you're on, and just keep listening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I almost forgot. We promised that we had a treat towards the end of today's conversation. And our treat, Royce, you're going to give the treat.
Wow.
Yeah, the treat is how can one break free from spiritual bypassing and face life head on? One piece of advice.
One piece of advice.
Yeah, of how to break free from
Trust
spiritual bypassing and face life head on.
Trust the emotions that are trying to be felt. Let them be felt all the way. Perhaps even verbalize them, because once you get them out, they flatten. It's the holding on that keeps them activated and crazy. But once you go, okay, this is what's going on in me, and this is the fear that's trying to be expressed, and I express that fear and get it out, so there it's done, it's released. Of course, you still need to figure out exactly where it came from and what was triggered, but that's the first step, I find. And I do it all the time, and I have this wonderful husband that just sits there and listens and goes, okay, thank you for telling me that, and find somebody that can do that for you and just listen while you get stuff out. It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah. That is quite interesting that you have put it that way, because we also had a practitioner, a doctor, and she's also a naturopath, and she said something very interesting and profound. It's almost similar to what you said. She said that the first step to healing is speaking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking is the first step to healing, and listening is also a key step in healing.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you go to anybody, a doctor, a practitioner, a healer, whatever, the two first key things that she mentioned should be happening: the sharing from the patient, the release, the acknowledgement, and she used other terminologies, and from the practitioner and the doctor, the listening.
Yeah. And not trying to fix and not saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Just acknowledging and recognizing and going, thank you, gosh, thank you for sharing that with me. That took my husband a while to not try to fix things. I think it's kind of a masculine tendency, but now he really just gets it, and it's like, oh, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's part of the healing because of the listening part. It's a healing, there's a way she explained it from a medical naturopathic perspective. And so we underestimate this stuff, but every time you have a good friend, a good family member, somebody who you have your husband, having this person is a very good way to heal each other as well, because they can also do the same. This is a resource that is available to both of you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And she said it is the first step before you do anything. I change the diet, take the pill, and the medicine, the massage, whatever. Before you do anything, or before you diagnose anything, you have to do these two properly.
Yep. Got to feel to heal. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so to all our listeners, this was our smart guest, Royce Morales, hanging out with us on Sisterhood Smarts. Royce, I want you to have the last word before we head out.
The last word. Deserve to trust your intuition and your authenticity. and reach out to me if you'd like to do some heavy digging. It's roycemorales.com. Thank you so
Okay.
much. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure and an honor having you with us. To all our listeners, once more, thank you for stopping by. That's it for today. Until next time, please stay healthy, stay authentic. And as always, Royce's information will be in the description. Okay. So all the information is going to be in the description, including her bio, her information, and all the links. So make sure you drop by, you check on and see what piques your interest. And if it's interesting and something that you feel you could benefit from, then feel free to connect and reach out to Royce. So that will be it for today. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Evenings come, stars are twinkle, dinner on the stove. We talk about our dreams and plans, the future we both hope.